Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
So we're having a bit of a lazy Saturday here, which is nice. We get together Saturdays sometimes to do extra recording.
Yeah, I mean, last Thursday, we only got through a single chapter. It was More Tellings of the Wheel.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. Or the one before the Blight, 47?
Yeah, 47. And that was just a lot in that chapter. And we had, well, if you're listening to this, you probably heard.
Yeah.
Kelsey on with us, and she was awesome.
Yeah, she added a lot and asked some good questions, and it's just easier to go for longer. We ended up with like 2 hours of raw recording from that, so we just called it after that. And generally we do 2 chapters in a sitting, but
that was long. Well, you know, there was almost 2 big parts of that chapter. There was Fane and then the story of Lan.
Yeah, and we preambled and tangented quite a bit.
We did tangent a lot. With 3 people, it's amazing how much you can.
Oh yeah, it just adds a lot more.
It definitely does. Just started editing that episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. So you guys should, well, you'll have already heard it.
Yeah, I think generally we're like somewhere between a week or a month out. So whatever we're recording is released somewhere between 1 week to a month after we record it.
And right now we have no buffer, so we're actually at like a couple of days.
Yeah, which is why we're getting together on a Saturday.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to build that back up again. So if Patrick gets hit by a car again, we don't have to get hit by a car. We can take a day off without worrying about missing an episode for you guys.
This has been nice. We're usually on a little bit of a time limit because we'll get together at like 6 p.m. on a Thursday, and we've got like 4 hours before one of us has to head home and go to bed.
Not even just that, I just tend to pass out.
Yeah.
And we stop being really coherent after about 3 or 4 hours, and then it's just a waste of time.
It's hard to sit and talk for longer than that.
Especially when we're drinking. But yeah, it's a good Saturday, and I think we both just had a lazy morning, and now we're drinking coffee, trying to wake up and get going on this thing.
Yep.
All right. So we are starting on chapter 48, right?
Yeah, chapter 48 is called The Blight, and our symbol is the blighted tree. I don't know if this was included in one of our last episodes, but we were talking about how there's 2 different tree symbols, at least 2.
There's actually a third.
There's a third one?
There's a tree with leaves, a tree without leaves, and then a blighted tree. And I actually included all 3 of those in the description to that episode. The Faltara was the chapter we were talking about that.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's the same thing. It's a tree with a moon behind it, but it's in 3 different levels of health, and it's used at various different chapter headings.
Oh, is it meant to be the same tree? Oh.
I think so.
It has the same. Each has the moon behind it.
Uh-huh. And the tree with the leaves and without the leaves is pretty much, same shape. I think it's just a generic tree, though. I don't think that they're trying to represent like this particular tree is being blighted.
Gotcha.
But it sort of shows like how close they are to the dark one, and the tree without the leaves shows that the seasons are extending past when they're supposed to be, and green things aren't growing the way they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blighted one obviously shows that they're in the blight.
Yeah, Faldara is the leafless tree. Then the raven. Then the blighted tree.
I'm not sure if the tree with leaves is in this one, or if it's in another book.
I can't be sure either. I don't think it is. I think you're right, though.
Check like the last chapter, because there might be like a Green Man chapter.
The last chapter is the snake and the wheel.
Yeah, I see Avienda Soreleaf. Yeah, chapter 7, Out of the Woods, is the tree without leaves.
Chapter 48 starts out with a long description that I really liked. It's like 2 pretty long paragraphs. Start by reading that, see if we can break into this.
Sure, yeah.
After this sip of coffee. It has been a nice day. I really didn't do anything until I came here.
I didn't do anything until you showed up.
Like played video games. Woke up kind of early and I just didn't do anything.
No, I had breakfast and I played Minecraft. And then I walked the dog.
Leisure is important.
Yeah.
The wind whipped Lan's cloak, sometimes making him hard to see even in the sunlight, and Ingtar and the 100 lances Lord Agelmar had sent to escort them to the border, in case they met a Trolloc raid, made a brave display in double column, with their armor and their red pennants, and their steel-clad horses led by Ingtard's grey owl banner. They were easily as grand as 100 of the Queen's guards, but it was the towers just in sight ahead of them that Rand studied. Had all morning to watch the Shienaran lances. Each tower stood tall and solid atop a hill, half a mile from its neighbor. East and west others rose, and more beyond those. A broad, walled ramp spiraled around each stone shaft, winding all the way around by the time it reached the heavy gates halfway to the crenellated top. A sortie from the garrison would be protected by the wall until it reached the ground, but enemies striving to reach the gate would climb under a hail of arrows and stones, and hot oil from the big kettles poised on the outward flaring ramparts above. A large steel mirror, carefully turned down away from the sun now, glittered atop each tower below the high iron cup, where the signal fires could be lit when the sun did not shine. The signal would be flashed to towers further from the border, and by those still to others, and so relayed to the Heartland fortresses, from where the lances would ride to turn back the raid. Were times normal, they would.
And we see that system engage at the start of the last battle.
Yeah.
There's a whole scene in the towers where they're raided and the man sends his son, or his son ends up staying.
That's right.
And they light the signal towers. Because the Trollocs try and circle around and cut them off and prevent the signal from getting out.
Yeah. And the boy that's earning his first sword or something like that, is that the...
Yeah. And he earns
like
it.
The first day he's allowed to use it.
It's the day he becomes a man, I think.
Do you remember the age? Is it 15? 13?
I think it's 13.
13?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
That's one of Brandon Sanderson's more poignantly written scenes. Sort of those characters. I mean, they all die, basically.
Yeah.
In the tower. So they're not like...
They're not like stick around characters.
Right. Yeah, we get to sort of just meet them and then
watch them die.
That's, he's showing the horrific nature of battle.
Yeah. And we talked about this in the last one, but Ingtar, Dark Friend alert, by the way.
No, and he's absolutely doing everything he can to try and come with them because he wants to be in a position to sabotage them, if this is the true battle.
Yeah. Doesn't he eventually turn back?
Yes. That happens after they go through the portal stone. And he lives all the different lives, the flicker, flicker, flicker scene.
Oh.
And he experiences all the horrific things he is willing to do. And from that point on, he is basically trying to redeem himself. But before then, he's pretty much just an evil dark friend.
Interesting.
He believes that by turning to the shadow, he can save a portion of Shienar.
Yeah.
He thinks that it's inevitable that they will lose to the Trollocs.
I could see how you would think so.
That after just generations and generations and generations of fighting, that eventually they will lose. And the only way to preserve part of his homeland was to turn to the dark side. That's his, and then he basically has, I think, he goes to the Portal Stone, lives a bunch of different lives, and comes to the realization that nothing he does is actually benefiting his home.
That he won't actually be able to save anything.
Yeah. And he will only, by being allied with the dark, he's only hurting it. I think he also feels guilty because he opens the gate and lets in the assassin who tries to take out Rand early in the next book.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Someone opens one of the
gates.
They call them dog gates or something like that.
There's a assassin on the roof who shoots at Rand. And it's sort of, they make it like he's shooting at the Armelin seat, but he's actually shooting at Rand.
Yeah.
And that guy Ingtar later confesses to having let him in, not knowing who he was going to shoot at. So, but no, he's still very much a dark friend at this point, and he wants to go with them to sabotage.
To escort you here means we may not reach the gap before the fighting is done. I am robbed of the chance to stand with the rest, and at the same time, I am commanded not to ride one step beyond the border post, as if I had never been in the Blight, and my Lord Agelmar will not tell me why. He's asking kind of a silent question. He can have my place, Matt muttered to Rand.
Inappropriate, Matt. Inappropriate. Seriously.
Each of us has his part in the pattern, Ingtar, Moraid said firmly. From here, we must thread ours alone. Are you really that eager, Nynaeve asked, to fight Trollocs? Ingtar gave her a puzzled look, then glanced at Lan as if the warder might explain. That is what I do, lady, he said slowly. That is why I am.
And there's that sort of fatalism, right? Like, if he has nothing other than fighting Trollocs.
Yeah, the entire purpose of these Borderlands soldiers' lives.
Mm-hmm.
They're always on duty, and I assume they don't ever really retire. You just fight till you die. I mean, there's somebody makes it out alive, I'm sure, but...
They definitely talk about, like, the old men staying behind to guard the walls when they ride out to Tarwin's Gap. So there are they're more they probably end up being like guards rather than...
Yeah, that's what I mean. That
you
don't really...
duty.
Everybody's on duty all the time, more or less.
Oh, I mean, the citizen, anyone will pick up a sword on the Borderlands.
Yeah.
Everyone's trained.
Like the Aiel.
Yeah. Everyone, well, the Aiel isn't it everyone except blacksmiths and the wise ones?
Yeah.
And that changes. So, and Moraine insists that they don't come, and I think I talked about in the last episode just how wise it was that she makes that decision.
Yeah.
For the very reason that Ingtar is a dark friend. Even if she doesn't know it, any of the soldiers could be.
Yeah, nobody knows that. And she plans this well without knowing.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I have is after Ingtar says, "Peace favor your sword" to Lan, Egwene says, "What a strange thing to say. Why do they use it like that, peace?" "When you have never known a thing except to dream," Lan replied, heeling Mandar forward. "It becomes more than a talisman."
Next, I have Nynaeve listening to the wind, and she's sort of feeling something, the wind coming out of the Blight, and she says it feels wrong. And then Rand agrees with her.
And it says he could feel it too.
Yeah.
I highlighted that also, wondering what's going on there.
I mean, it's either just the fact that he can channel and he's feeling the evil that's emanating from the Blight.
Yeah.
And that it is corrupting the Blight. Like, that's probably the most likely explanation. But I was also sort of thinking about the quote, "The dragon is one with the land is one with the dragon."
Right.
Rand, at various times, seems to sense things about the land and the area around him, irrespective of his other abilities. Especially when he's tuned in, like after Veins of Gold.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering if maybe he's not just sort of sensing the sickness and the wrongness because he is in tune with the land.
It could be either or both.
Yeah, or both. One thing I don't remember where I saw this theory, but someone pointed out that in the prologue, Lewis Theron gateways in to where he creates Dragonmount.
Yeah.
And he knows that no one is within miles of him. And the only way he would know that, because he just gatewayed in, is through this, the dragon is one with the land sense.
I've never noticed that before, but it's a good theory. I have noted that after they cross the border post, there's no change to the land or forest for, Rand says, at least an hour, so a few miles. I would assume. The Blight hasn't actually taken all of Malkier yet.
Right, because the border didn't used to be the border. That was just the border to Malkier.
And as they go deeper past the border and towards the Blight, we see that it gets warm and damp and swamp-like.
Basically, everything up until the Mountains of Doom is Malkier. I thought the old border of Malkier was the Mountains of Doom.
I think that's right.
And so they have to get over the high passes to get out of old Malkier.
I know that at least one of the reasons Moraine wants to get to the passes or over the passes is because that's where she found the Green Man last time.
Right. But I've always thought that perhaps the Green Man existed in the Blight, and as the Blight sort of spread over into Malkier, he's been able to come over the passes with it.
Oh, the map in this paperback doesn't have the outline of Malkier in it, but there are maps that do have it and show where it was. Directly north of Shinar, right?
Right.
In the area of Tarwin's Gap.
It's not super clear from the maps I'm looking at.
I could have sworn I've seen it somewhere before.
So this one's pretty good. So at least has the 7 towers. I always thought, I guess these are the Mountains of Doom, so this is this a valley here, or is that just where the writing is?
It looks like that's just where the writing is.
So Malkier must have been up here, just right below Tarwin's Gap. Because here it shows where the 7 towers of Malkier are. Yeah. And it says Malkier was north of both Arafel and Shinar, mostly over Shinar. So I'm guessing, from what I can see of the map, there's just a little bit of Arafel that touches the border of where Malkier would have been, but most of it's north of Faldara.
I cannot find it either. I'm fully fixated on this now. I could have sworn I've seen this before.
Malkier lay north of Shinar, apparently running from the Blight border, from where the Blight border is now located to Tarwin's Gap, and possibly even beyond the Mountains of Doom. It was the northernmost of the Westlands and the one located closest to Sheol. The 7 towers are located along the shores of several lakes not far from the southern feet of the Mountains of Doom.
Good enough. I was sure that it existed somewhere. I found one, but it kind of looked like hand-drawn or something, and I don't know how reliable that is.
Whoever's going to draw these maps is going to be guessing as much as we are.
Yeah. It was damp, Rand realized, and hot. It felt like the mire in the depths of summer back in the 2 rivers. Only Perrin, still in his coat, was breathing easily. Perrin and the warder. I was wondering what that was about. This Perrin's...
I wrote that he is full of sort of
+1 vitality.
Yeah. He sort of got the wolf sensations, and he seems to be,
Yeah, we can see that quite a bit in the next chapter or 2.
He's more, I want to say, a wolf doesn't worry about being cold. They just are in the cold.
Yeah.
They don't worry about being hot. It's not like it's almost like he's preoccupied with his disgust and his hatred of the Blight. But yeah, that's one of those things where he seems to be, I don't know, it's almost shorthand for being a badass.
Yeah.
Right? Like just, they're, throughout the whole series, Jordan likes to use, they're not sweating as this like, yeah, they've kind of leveled up a little bit.
I'm going to agree with that. Perrin is leveling up a little sooner than the other 2 boys.
Yeah, well, he almost got that immediate benefit of, he became Wolf Brother right away.
Yeah.
He got the sense upgrade. He got, I don't know if he got stronger, but he certainly became more dangerous.
Yeah, it's not included in the descriptions of the Wolf Brother talent, but it definitely seems like he's special. More special than just an increased sensing abilities.
I imagine just the feralness of his actions. And he's just, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
And we see here they get to be at least a little more dangerous when they fight off the Blight.
Yeah, definitely.
Than we've seen them in the past. Before, they've pretty much just been running.
Next paragraph. There were a few leaves now, on trees that were not evergreen. Rand reached out to touch a branch and stopped with his hand short of the leaves. Sickly yellow mottled the red of the new growth, and black flecks like disease. I told you not to touch anything. The warder's voice was flat. He still wore his shifting cloak, as if heat made no more impression on him than cold. It almost made his angular face seem to float, unsupported, above Mandar's back. I always love those images.
The warder cloak, like an invisibility cloak?
Yeah, exactly like that. Flowers can kill in the Blight, and leaves maim. There's a little thing, called a stick, capital S, that likes to hide where the leaves are thickest, looking like its name, waiting for something to touch it. When something does, it bites, not poison. The juice begins to digest the stick's prey for it. The only thing that can save you is to cut off the arm or the leg that was bitten. But a stick won't bite you unless you touch it. Other things in the Blight will. Rand jerked his hand back, leaves untouched.
I am a stick.
I am a stick, he said. He sounded satisfied. You could be fire, Shallan said. I am a stick. The stick was not particularly eloquent.
The stick was not particularly eloquent.
I just played Patrick a little snippet from Brandon Sanderson's Words of Radiance when Shallan's trying to turn the stick into fire.
I don't really remember that scene, but I definitely read the book.
It's much more memorable in the audiobook because of Kate Redding's reading of it, where she's like, I am a
Then we're in the Blight, Perrin said. Strangely, he did not sound frightened. Just the fringe, Lan said grimly. The real Blight still lies ahead. I have more to read. There's a lot of good descriptions in the next couple chapters that, mile by mile, the corruption of the Blight became more apparent. Leaves covered the trees in ever greater profusion, but stained and spotted with yellow and black, with livid red streaks like blood poisoning. Every leaf and creeper seemed bloated, ready to burst at a touch. Flowers hung on trees and weeds in a parody of spring, sickly pale and pulpy, waxen things that appeared to be rotting while Rand watched. When he breathed through his nose, the sweet stench of decay, heavy and thick, sickened him. When he tried breathing through his mouth, he almost gagged. The air tasted like a mouthful of spoiled meat. The horse's hooves made soft squishing as rotten, ripe things broke open under them.
So we have these fig trees here in Portland. And if the fruit doesn't get picked, it falls onto the sidewalk. And that sort of reminds me a lot of the Blight, because you get this fermenting, rotting fruit squishing underneath your feet, releasing a very pungent smell.
Yeah, except everything's even worse.
But even more, like, yeah, I imagine that being like not just one tree, but like every tree everywhere.
Yeah, if they all dumped all their fruit on like a 100-degree day in the summer,
right?
It just sat there for days,
fermented and rotted, and yeah,
not the good kind of fermentation.
No. But yeah, it's just this bloated corpse. I mean, basically, it's a bloated corpse of a forest.
Yeah. Despite the heat and damp, Loyal wrapped a scarf around his nose and mouth.
Ugh.
When he met Rand's gaze, the Ogier's outrage and disgust were plain in his eyes. I had heard, he began.
I mean, it's the most offensive thing in the world to him. He relishes trees, and here he's basically walking through the bloated corpse of a tree.
Yeah.
It's just offensive.
Yeah, just like Loyal, he gets indignant about it. The warder was not affected, of course. At least not that Rand could see, but to his surprise, neither was Perrin, or rather, not in the way the rest of them were. The big youth glared at the obscene forest, through which they rode as he might have at an enemy, or at the banner of an enemy. He caressed the axe at his belt as if unaware of what he was doing, and muttered to himself, half growling in a way that made the hair on Rand's neck stir. Even in full sunlight, his eyes glowed, golden and fierce.
This is, of course, after Matt pukes off the horse.
Oh, right. I forgot that part.
He gives it a couple of dry heaves and just, ugh.
Yeah, but all really good descriptions of the Blight here. I guess the first descriptions are usually the most thorough.
Yeah, it really gives you a sense of place. You know, it takes you out of normalcy, the normal, world that exists. And
yeah.
In a lot of ways, the Blight, we don't spend a lot of time in it, but the description of it is so extensive and so in-depth that I feel like it really creates a place that's awful. Really, really awful.
When I was a kid, I worked at this farmer's market every summer, and part of my job was like stocking, and I was like 14, 13, and throwing away vegetables that weren't going to be able to be sold. And there was this like midden pile in the back of the farm, essentially, that was just compost.
Mm-hmm.
But in the depth of the summer, it would get so that you couldn't even get near it. Like we would like draw lots, like me and the other boys, so like who had to go dump the trash on the pile, because it was so bad. Like you'd get close and just start gagging. This is what I'm imagining. It's like just like the heat and all the rotten vegetables, just piles.
Yeah. We used to get, when I'd empty the trash cans when I was lifeguarding, there would be, I called it trash can juice at the bottom.
Yeah, that.
That's, if you know what that is, and you know that smell, you've ever had a bag break open on your shoes or something, like it, they're done. Like, you're never going to wear those shoes again without smelling. Away, man. Everything that it touches is just gross. And they're enveloped in acres of it. So night's coming on, and they start looking for a place to camp.
Yeah. Lan says we can't reach the mountains by nightfall, and Moraine says there's a place close to here, and it would be a good omen if we camped there.
And that, of course, is the Seven Towers, which was the capital of Malkier.
You have to wonder what Lan thinks of all that.
Well, it's got to be painful. I'm sure the memories are painful.
Rand notices him pointedly not looking at them.
Yeah.
At some point, either in this chapter or the next one.
That's after his discussion with Nynaeve.
Lan says, yes, we must camp somewhere. It might as well be there. The eye of the world was beyond the high passes when I found it, Moraine said. Better to cross the mountains of doom in full daylight, at noon, when the Dark One's powers in this world are the weakest.
I kind of like the way he sets you up here to think there's going to be this epic mountain crossing. Meanwhile, you're like looking like, what? There's only like 50 pages left in the book. I don't understand.
I actually forgot how this happened, where they're running from the worms and then suddenly they're just in
the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the place where the Green Man lives called the Eye of the World, or is the Eye of the World just the store of Sidin?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not sure. I think they just call it the Green Man's place, Yeah. The Eye of the World is in the Green Man's place. And that moves around.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're looking for the eye, you're looking for the place where the Green Man is, but I don't know if it has a separate name.
Getting ahead of us a little, but at some point the Green Man says something like, no, this place is always where it is.
This is always where the people who need it are. It just depends on it's just the location of the person that changes.
Yeah.
It's the next chapter.
Yeah. We'll wait till we get there.
But he just calls it this place. He doesn't have like a name for it or anything.
Mm-hmm. This is a short description of the Seven Towers, and Rand noticing that they are towers and not just hills. And then there's the description of the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah. That's a very, again, a little bit of a stereotypical moment. The like, let's go down to the lake. And then you see like scaly back come out of the lake. Never mind. I feel like I've seen that in a bunch of like monster movies where they're like, let's go for a dip. And then you see like the scaly creature come sliding out.
Yeah.
There's a scene almost exactly like that in, isn't it basically Lord of the Rings, where they're trying to get into the gates of Moria and there's that creature in the water that comes out and tries to kill him?
I don't know Lord of the Rings as well as other stuff, although I did pledge to read them soon.
Have you ever read them?
I have read half of the first book like 3 times.
But you've never gotten through them?
Nope.
Okay.
I can make myself, but and it'll probably get more interesting. I've read The Hobbit a few times.
Sure. The Hobbit's not too tough.
Nah.
But it took me multiple tries to get through the whole thing.
Oh, and we see also in the next couple chapters really cool descriptions of Shadowspawn and the things that live in the Blight, which I kind of collectively call Shadowspawn, because it looks like when I was reading about worms and other things that most of these were created by Aginor, where Rand is looking at the Loch Ness Monster thing, and at the end,
it's got like hands on its.
Those couldn't have been hands on those tentacles. They couldn't have been.
I mean, I wonder how many of those were created by Aginor and how many of them are just, creatures that have corrupted in the Blight.
Because they live in the Blight. Yeah, that's possible too.
That there's like a bunch of some and a bunch of others, and
there's a bunch of creepy other monsters that we don't really see too much of throughout the series, but they're attacked by the bristly haired,
like mutated things with arms coming out of their backs, and just disgusting monsters.
Like Rand says, more mouth than face or something like that.
Right. But the worms are definitely Shadowspawn, because they're actually the juvenile stage
Yeah. And was it, I think, Demandred that said something like he thinks that Agenor made the worms just to see how repulsive and horrible of a thing he could make, because they're not usable in combat and they're not controllable.
Yeah. I mean, and they're the one power just makes them stronger if you try and use it on them.
Yeah.
He ended up fighting, so he encountered an adult specimen in that short story that he wrote where Demandred goes off to find that sangreal that he uses, the cup, the chalice.
Uh-huh.
What's the name of that short story?
I can't remember.
River of Souls.
That's it. River of Souls.
Yeah, Sanderson wrote that.
Yeah, I'm glad we got something out of the Shara story, because it just seems that, another one of those things where so much happened, but we just have to assume.
Well, and he wrote that to be in A Memory of Light, but just in terms of timing and length, they ended up cutting it.
Yeah. Was it just released for free?
It was part of an anthology called Unfettered.
Oh, I got you.
So I think there was, other authors had stories in there. But it's also, I feel like it's available online for free. I might be wrong about that.
I definitely read it online for free, but I can't remember where I found it.
Yeah, I don't see it. It looks like you do have to, you can get it pretty cheaply, I think. As an ebook, or you can get Unfettered for $10.
Gotcha. I don't even remember. Pretty sure I read it on my computer. Maybe you sent it to me.
Possibly.
Seth sends me a good amount of stuff to read. I read like half of it. Not because I don't wanna, but just,
Oh, sure. Ebooks and time.
Yeah. And the next thing I have is Nynaeve kind of threatening. I use that word too much. Nynaeve saying that she is thinking about going with the Queen to the White Tower. Make sure she's all right there, which is clearly not what's going on in Nynaeve's head. Because I think at this point, Nynaeve is realizing how much more powerful she could be if she just goes and gets this training and all the things she could do. I also noticed that she says that right after learning that Moraine can create the circle that reflects the opposite side, essentially.
Oh.
The, sphere of invisibility.
Mm-hmm. She says it's a simple thing, a bending, so any eye looking at us sees around us instead.
Yeah, I'm imagining that she makes, as if there were two walls, one in front and one behind, except it's a circle.
Yeah, I
and so if you
more
look
like
at
dome.
it, you just see the other side, not what's inside of it.
Yeah, I picture half a sphere.
Yeah.
And then you just make what's on the sphere appear on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little bit about how wards work in this scene. Moraine talks about a couple of different kinds of wards. She puts up the kind that can detect something bad, but she doesn't put up the kind that can actually repel. So you can put up a very physical repelling ward.
Yeah.
But that's going to require a lot more power, which is going to draw things to them. Versus something that's very simple, just detection ward.
I'm nodding. Specifically, fades.
Right. And in the Blight, there are definitely fades probably roaming around. Do you think they patrol?
I don't know. We don't get too much on Shadowspawn society or lack thereof. That's another thing that I've always wanted to know a little bit more about. What do Trollocs do in the Blight all the rest of the time?
Right.
What do they eat? Do they hunt the Blight creatures?
I think it's implied that they hunt Borderlanders. Because there's always constant raids on villagers.
But there's got to be way more Trollocs than... I would think that they would enjoy eating humans and non-Blight creatures the best, but there's got to be way too many Trollocs to live solely on humans, right? No? I don't know.
Probably. I mean, they're certainly ramping the numbers up in this part of the series. One of the reasons why the Blight goes so quiet is because all the Trollocs are gathering in one spot. They eat each other too, and I'm sure they'll eat anything.
Yeah.
And we also know there are people living in the Blight. There's the town.
That's
we
true.
know, Slayer or Isam ends up living there.
And the turned Aielman.
Mm-hmm. So there's evidence that there's more going on in the Blight than is obvious. We haven't even crossed into the Blight.
Yeah, Lan describes this as the fringe.
Right. And then there's Shale Ghul, which is it's got its own thing going on with the river and the forgers and the captives and Thakandar and the river. Like we get a couple of glimpses of spots in the Blight.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a whole, all the Trollocs that we see.
Like are there Trollocs that are blacksmiths? Are they Mirdrall blacksmiths or?
Oh no, those are constructs.
Oh yeah? I don't remember this.
Yeah, they talk. It's during the last battle they end up slaughtering them, but they basically talk about them as not fully alive.
What are they?
Constructs. They're beings that are created for the sole purpose of making the blades.
Like golems?
Yeah. Forgers are man-shaped entities created by or for the Dark One to do one thing: craft the deadly black blades of the Myrddraal at Thakandar. They are neither truly smiths nor truly alive. Transported any distance from Shale Ghul, they simply turn to stone or dust.
They're created by the Dark One himself.
Or for the Dark One. It's possible they were created by
channelers.
Ishmael using the true power is sort of my assumption. Or Agenor, although he tends to create creatures, not constructs.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of questions there that I don't really have answers for, or I don't think anyone does. Bunch of questions I could ask. Not just about the forgers, but about, all the other stuff.
Oh, yeah. The whole society that must be going on.
Yeah.
The Myrddraal are constantly, controlling and corralling the Trollocs, and they're under the control of the Forsaken. And
then there's the classic question of where do Trollocs come from, and are there female Trollocs? Which I think we have a definitive yes for.
Yeah, Jordan definitely gave a definitive yes in an interview, but there's nothing in the books themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just said there's female Trollocs that are basically used like breeding cows. Fun. And of course, when the boys freak out about that invisibility ward, Lan's like, sheep herders. And then when I like Moraine's response when Nynaeve says she's going to go to the White Tower with Egwene and be an Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Moraine's just like, perhaps that would be for the best. I'm like, you've been planning that the whole time.
Oh yeah, that's why I brought that up to begin with.
I think Moraine almost deliberately provokes Nynaeve just to piss her off enough to get her to if you want revenge, you got to go to the tower.
I think that's exactly what she's doing. And
yeah.
We've had this conversation before on the podcast, but Nynaeve is too powerful to give up, and Moraine knows that. Moraine wouldn't let her go.
Not easily.
Into the world and do her own thing. It's not going to happen.
I think she, if it had no choice because of Rand. Rand is more important.
Sure.
But if she'll do anything she can to hang on to Nynaeve, short of giving up the Dragon Reborn.
Right. I believe Moraine said that I can find something for you to do in Tarvelen, for all of you.
Not herding sheep, perhaps, but something you'd find interesting.
Yeah. And this is where Rand says, kind of agrees that he would be Egwene's warder.
Yeah, but he immediately knows that it's not going to happen because of Min's viewing.
Mm-hmm. She's not for you, nor you for her. Not in the way you would both like, anyway. Like a page-long conversation between Nynaeve and Lan.
Yeah, from Rand's perspective.
Which is... Yeah, from that Rand overhears. Jeez, it's a whole full page. I don't know how much of this I should read, but it's good stuff.
There's some flirting going on. I just wanted to point out 2 lines. He says to her, "You are a lioness, Wisdom." And she replies, "Some men are strong enough. I know one such." It's like that, back and they complement each other in terms of their strength, and those are separate.
Yeah, I'll read the last little bit. "All I have is a sword and a war I cannot win, but can never stop fighting. I've told you I care nothing for that. This is Nynaeve talking now. Light, you've made me say more than is proper already. Will you shame me to the point of asking you? I will never shame you. The gentle tone, like a caress, sounded odd to Rand's ears in the warder's voice, but it made Nynaeve's eyes brighten. I will hate the man you choose, because he is not me, and love him if he makes you smile. No woman deserves the sure knowledge of the widow's black as her bride price, you least of all. He set the untouched cup on the ground and rose. I must check the horses. Nynaeve remained there, kneeling, after he had gone. Sleep or no, Rand closed his eyes. He did not think the wisdom would like it if he watched her cry.
I mean, that's such a touching scene between the two of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Nynaeve, basically, they come out and pretty much confess their love for each other.
Nynaeve's like, let's do this thing, and Lan's like, it's never going to happen, and guess who has the stronger will in the long run?
Nynaeve,
yeah.
Because, yeah. She breaks him real fast.
How long does it take? Like months?
I mean, they're married in 2 years, within 2 years.
Okay, yeah.
But, he's committed to her long before they're married.
Yeah, Kelsey asked us an interesting question that you were saying was a long time ago that you had put in your notes about what Lan does. Oh, geez, it's 2 chapters from now, but it might be interesting to throw out there right now.
Oh, yeah. There's a scene where, in the Eye of the World, Agenor and Bethalmal they're about to basically kill Nynaeve or Moraine, and he has a choice that he can save one of them, and he jumps.
Yeah.
But it's never specified which one he jumps towards. And so she was asking, which of the two do you think he went to protect? Nynaeve or Moraine?
Yeah, when I read it again, I'll an eye on it to see what I can get out of it, but
having not read it recently, my assumption, and this is just my guess, is that he is smart enough to know that Moraine is the better ally, and that if he saves her, he's got a better chance of saving both of them.
Right. That was my first thought, too.
Yeah. It's just on a pure practical level.
Moraine is way more valuable in a fight than Nynaeve, at this point, anyway.
Right. That does change.
Yeah.
But right now, at least at the Eye of the World. But then again, never underestimate love.
Makes you do dumb stuff.
Yep.
And that brings us right into chapter 49. Should we take a pause and jump into that?
Definitely. Fwah.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?